Welcome to my channel, KC. That's me, Carrie Chug, the Sludge Storyteller, here to tell you about good examples of storytelling as such that I saw in the Batman. So yes, it was good. To me, it was awesome. So I have to say now that the most lethal Batman that you could go up against, maybe lethal is not the word, but the one that you be most afraid of would have to be either Robert Pattinson or Ben Affleck, based on just how much of a wallop they pack. And you know, Pattinson is a very convincing Batman wherever he is. He's got presence. It's somewhere between the way he moves, the way he stares, and I have to believe that the Batsuit has part of it. So it's a very well made Batsuit. So it all comes together beautifully. And the way he conducts himself, the way he broods, as you would expect Batman to brood, it all works. So for what they're going for, you know, a Batman who is hell-bent on the mission he's picked up, you know, this Batman does it in spades. And with Robert Pattinson's Batman, I also agree that, you know, it was time that we see an increase of his being a detective that had only been touched upon minusculely in previous movies. So, is it played well? It is played beautifully. So, if you're hoping for a good detective Batman, I totally say you're gonna get it. But Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne, how does that work? So now it's all about timing, I'll say. You know, as we were waiting on the next Batman movie after the collapse of that Burton and Schumacher franchise, I myself, I was thinking of a few things that I wanted to see different than what we had seen before. And one of them was to see Batman as the billionaire playboy. And so why would I like this when it's the exact opposite? You know, here Bruce Wayne, he is just down in the dumps. He just hurts. You can see his pain. You can see his suffering. But, you know, okay. You know, Christian Bale, he was an awesome playboy Batman, and playboy Bruce Wayne, more like. So Robert Pattinson, you know, after my appetite was satisfied with Christian Bale, here we've got Robert Pattinson as one who's just got his inner demons. So that works. And you know, it seems like it's more common to see with superheroes that they have a character arc to them, and no exception here. So Robert Pattinson, he starts off, you know, really dark, really down, really low, and we see an arc. You know, that's all I'll say. We see an arc, and the arc works. So Alfred, played by Andy Serkis, and you know, does he do a good job? He does his job. You know, I'll still say that my favorite Alfred was Michael Caine so far. Andy Serkis, you know, he's that father figure. He is there for Bruce. He's trying to keep him from going over the edge. So it works along those lines. Do we see enough of him for the story? Yes. And, you know, I have to hope that we will see more of him, that he'll be more extensively used in the coming sequels to this movie. But, you know, for what we get from him, it's good. So, James Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright. So, here's another thing that I was hoping for when it came to what Batman movie we're going to get after Burton Schumacher was over. I wanted to see a stronger working relationship between Batman and Commissioner Gordon. And, you know, I loved what Gary Oldman and Christian Bale were able to pull off. They had great chemistry. Same thing applies here. You know, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon is an awesome Commissioner Gordon. You know, therein they there's a lot of back and forth where they're helping each other accomplish the common goal. And I'd already loved him as Felix in the James Bond movies. He's just as good Commissioner Gordon, except he's more prominent here. And Jeffrey Wright definitely deserved that opportunity to show that he deserves to be put further in the spotlight, more closer to you to notice what he can do. It was an awesome performance. So, Catwoman played by Zoe Kravitz. I don't know if I feel that comfortable in saying this was Catwoman. And I will say, okay, it was Selena Kyle. There's barely any cat motif to the role. And I did think it was interesting that at some point, the way the outfit that she's wearing is the exact same outfit you see Selena wearing in Year One, done by Frank Miller and Mazzucchelli. But she plays it very well for what they were going for. It works beautifully. So Carmine Falcone, not Falcone as it was pronounced in the Christopher Nolan movies, played by John Turturro. I love the trivia that comes into play here. Now, there used to be the Wizard magazine about comics, and they had a feature that was casting call where they would get a comic creator to talk about what actors they think would be best cast for the characters of a story that they created. So such was the case with Dark Victory by Jeff Loeb, which featured the Falcone family, and it was interesting that his choice to play the timid, the feeble son of Carmine Falcone was John Turturro. But trivia out of the way. John Turturro is an awesome Carmine Falcone. He's got the accent. I don't know if you're going to find that just a stereotype. But, he's convincing as an old mob boss, a sense of what had been the old ways with the mob. But, he's supposed to be holding the reins, but it seems that, it's his legacy that keeps him in charge. But, what they do with him is beautifully done. So, Penguin by Colin Farrell. So, it's interesting that, when they put Penguin in Batman Returns back in 1992, this was a time where Penguin was just a gimmicky villain. He would lead a gang, but it was always just about, his, again, gimmicks, his trick umbrellas, and his methods, his being the evil villain, but kind of the stuffy, cultured villain. And so, Tim Burton, I get the idea that it was obligatory to use the Penguin because he was the best known villain other than the Joker at that point, mainly because of people being familiar with the 1960s Batman series. But, it was sometime shortly after Batman Returns that they decided to make Penguin a mob boss. And, and because of that, I really hungered for that type of Penguin. And, we kind of got that with Robin Lord Taylor in the Gotham series. And I loved what he did with that. I still wanted a movie with a, has quite a bit of clout in the Mafia. That's what we get with Colin Farrell. And, the prosthetics. Here's a guy who disappears in his role because, if I'm to rate how well an actor plays based on how well he disappears into a role and is completely unrecognizable, this, I'd have to say, was the best performance I've seen ever, period. But, it's well done. Penguin is recognizable as Penguin from the current comics, the mob boss. Riddler, played by Paul Dano. Now, I hadn't seen anything with Paul Dano. I've not seen There Will Be Blood. But here, you've got a different type of Riddler than what you saw. Last time we had a Riddler in the movies, that was Jim Carrey, and everybody knew enough about Jim Carrey to know that they were going to get Frank Gorshin on steroids. And in case anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about with Frank Gorshin, he was Riddler of the 60s series. But here they merge him with Zodiac, and is often compared to being in the movie Seven. But here's a guy who invites you to. Is pretty sympathetic. So, you understand what's made him angry. You don't condone his actions, but the way they play this up is done beautifully. And Riddler is a different kind of Riddler. I will say that this kind of sinister play on the Riddler, felt like it amped up from the type of Riddler we saw in the next animated series after Batman the Animated Series, The Batman, where Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund, was the voice of the Riddler, and very creepy Riddler. But here we've got a creepy Riddler. Here, he's going all out to commit crimes with understandable motives, just not understandable methods. But he's as creepy as this type of Riddler needs to be. So, the Batmobile. Here's where I feel a little bit of personal gratification. Again, after the Batman movies tanked under Joel Schumacher, there was talk of this being a year one movie. And so, year one, Batman's just barely starting out, so it's too early for him to have a Batmobile. He does have a glider, and he does steal a motorcycle. But, so I thought to myself, if we're starting early in Batman's career, we should have a Batmobile, but it would make more sense to me that he would just use one of Bruce Wayne's own cars. And in this case, with year one, I thought about the Porsche he had there, and that he would fortify it, and that's totally the feeling you get here. And so I think the Tumbler will still always be my favorite Batmobile, just what it does, the power it exudes. But yeah, this is a more than passable Batmobile. It's an awesome Batmobile. Again, okay, some might be put off that it's kind of a civilian's vehicle, but it's a convincing Batmobile that started as a civilian vehicle. So, it was a Batmobile in spades, definitely. The story. This is a very compelling detective noir story, and I love how they played it up. This is the first time they've truly gone all out to make Batman a detective, and the sleuth work here is beautifully done. The challenges that are put up against him to function as a detective, and it can't be whodunit. It's going to be a Riddler in the end. Sorry about the spoiler, but we get detective. We get him to have to find clues, and some might say that's a cop out to go with Riddler. It's too easy for him to be leaving clues, but the angle works beautifully. We get a detective Batman. He's really challenged as a detective with the evidence he has to process. The way he pulls it off is just awesome. So, and it's not just the Riddler, the Penguin, Carmine Falcone. All those, they all have their own subplots, and the subplots are just as awesome as the core plot. But the key characters, they have an arc that is fascinating, that leads you to see some growth for the characters, particularly Batman, with where you sense that he's going, and that you're totally rooting for the guy. So I'm not gonna say what is meant by that, because that's giving too much away as to what we see at the end, but it's an awesome story. But that's my take on the Batman. My first review. Hope it works. I don't know how it compare with everybody else. First review, so maybe not my best review, but you know, I hope we can see the end of the pandemic soon. If that's what it feels like. I mean, this is the first time I went to the movies since Shazam because of the lockdown. So it was very refreshing to make it to the movies. And was this too long? Not in my experience. You know, you had to be careful with how much you drank. You didn't want to have to be sucked into the bathroom. But you know, for its length, it worked for me. But hopefully it worked for you. I wholeheartedly recommend it. So I'm not going to do any stars or anything like that. I'll just give you the underlying thing. This was a rockin' movie. But you know, we'll see where it comes from this. I probably will do some more reviews of movies from the past. I'm not going to make it the latest release type of thing. Not mostly. I'll go on some superhero classics and what I got from them. But you know, as always, the link to order Sledge number 1 and Sledge number 2 on Indie Planet is below there. You can get it on both digital or paper, and there might be a little sticker shock if you order paper. The shipping charges, I don't know why, they're high. And it's also available through Kindle. But everyone be safe, and God bless.